around the world. I had a good weekend, did you?
Yes, I did have a good weekend. It was
Yeah.
really good. Wayne got me some vintage jewelry from a yard sale, so that was
Oh,
my big highlight.
she went yard sailing, or he went yard
He
sailing
went
for
yard
her.
selling, and he bought this old lady's little stash of jewelry, and it was beautiful. It was like from the '60s or
It's like that
something.
commercial. He went to Jared. No, he went to the yard sale. But that's all right. Yeah, we're in moving mode right now. We're moving houses just a couple of miles down the road. But I had a friend tell me the other day, she said, don't, whatever you do, she said, make sure you put everything in boxes, because if you don't put everything in boxes, it'll be the worst move that you ever made. And so, because otherwise you try to piecemeal it, oh, we'll just take this in the car. So I'm like, oh my gosh, if I see another cardboard box, I'm going to, come out of myself. But anyway, it's been a good weekend, and I got to go kudzu harvesting yesterday, and so all is well with the world. So
And you brought lots of new treasures to the studio.
I
With
did.
this move. He's cleaned out his building and.
Well, it's so crazy when we moved in the studio that we share together in the River Arts District. It was kind of crazy because I called myself bringing all my stuff. And of course I was like, well, I'll leave a little bit here at the house, or well, I don't need to bring that, and da, da, da. And so like 3 truckloads later of stuff that I'm bringing, I'm like, where am I going to put this? And so I told Patty, I said, I'm going to start a new TV show called Hoarders Basket Makers Edition, because I'm just like, I'm in pure sin with all this mess. It's just crazy. I looked at it this morning. I said, if I can't make a basket out of all this, then something is wrong. But anyway, it's always fun to, look through all your stuff and just see the new things when you're cleaning out. I know you've been through that last week. It's kind of like, you're like, oh, I didn't know I had this, or I could use this in this way, or something like that. So it
makes you very creative. It's like like I was telling you this morning. It's like, I want to sew. No, I want to paint. No, I want to build something. So it's really fun to look through all your materials, all your creative materials.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, it is, and I think it keeps keeping organized. I don't know, for me, I kind of work in these. I don't know. I'll just go on a tear for a couple of weeks and just be messy and stuff everywhere, and my trash is piling up, and then I have to clean everything and get organized and start again. So I'm going out of town to teach at the North Carolina Basket Makers Convention this weekend. All of you are going, there's really a basket makers convention? I'm like, yeah, there is. We wear basket hats, and no, I'm just kidding. But
Matching T-shirts.
yeah. I'm trying to think of some pithy thing to say, but I can't. I'm not.
Plaid. We could
Plaid,
talk about the plaid.
exactly. How nice. So I'm like,
Matt's wearing basket maker's plaid
That's right.
today rather than cool hip plaid.
That's right. Yeah, I don't know what it is about that. I go in these stores and I'm like, oh, all the kids are wearing that. I could wear that, and then I put it on there, and it's like total LL Bean. So I'm like, just whatever. When I get as old as you, Patty, I probably won't forget it. I probably won't remember it anyway. But so anyway.
Well, you don't have long to wait.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. So, well, we're still talking this week about marketing your business and what it means to be successful as an artist, to cultivate a successful and thriving creative life. And last week we talked about so much. It's a great simulcast. If you didn't get that, go on our website. We just uploaded it, and definitely get that so you can listen to it and get all the great nuggets out of there. But today we wanted to talk about, really hone in a little more on 2 areas. One was the whole artist statement thing, and then which is a big source of concern and kind of frustration for a lot of people. I didn't realize that it was going to be like that when I put that in Unlocking the Heart of the Artist, several years ago. That's kind of one of the biggest things that people, other than all the emotional stuff that you have to go through, that's one of the biggest struggles. And so we'll talk about that in detail today. And then also we want to talk about just some real details about technology, because I just did a 4 or 6 hour, I forget, it was long, workshop. It seemed like 6 was I was talking, but I did a workshop last week at the Southern Highland Craft Guild for about 30 artists over there. And I was just amazed. I'm always amazed because we use technology so much, but how many folks are new on that trajectory of how do you use technology, in your art business and developing yourself as an artist. And so we definitely want to jump into that. But you kind of had a divine appointment this week with a friend of ours talking about artist statement, and then we're like, hey, we should talk about that more.
She had come down to just talk about her website. She's putting up a new website, and realized that within her website, she didn't have an artist statement, and so she was like, I'm not really sure how to do that. So it was like my homeschooling hat came out. It was like, okay, well, let's write an essay. Let's
That's right.
start with brainstorming,
With an outline.
And so
Right.
within 30 or 40 minutes, we had went over so many things that were very helpful to her, like just brainstorming through ideas of how to get started with your artist statement until 30, 40 minutes later, we had a full outline, and she's already sent a draft back to me this
Wow.
morning. And so we'll talk about that some. I think we can get into that, like really get into the nuts and bolts of
Yeah.
that, and maybe turn that almost into like a little activity for you guys today and help you to, really get some very specific structure around how to write your artist statement and
Right.
what that means. I think that could be a whole segment for us.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
um,
I kind of call that artist statement. I've described it as like the window to your creative world, because it's when somebody looks in your creative house, they're like, what am I going to see? What makes you you? I think about, when you look at somebody's house, there's all the trinkets and the things on the fireplace and the kids' refrigerator art. And it's like no one of those things makes you exactly who you are, but all of those things together kind of come together to
Right.
create the package. And for me, an artist statement really is a clear way to, in a succinct way, but to give a window into the world, to see who you are, kind of where you come from, what's the things that are going on inside your heart when you're creating. But it's not a resume.
Right.
It's not just let me list all the stuff that I've done for the last 30 years, because that is boring. So,
Yeah.
how do you kind of, because I know you've done a lot of that before with folks, and how do you identify, or help to differentiate between, the artist statement versus your Vita that's on the website that is your resume and just all the stuff that you've done? What are the differences there that you see?
Well, initially, I think you have to make sure that you have all the right pieces in your media package, in your website, which is most often for people just a website.
Right.
You do need your bio, which is much more professional, and it's usually written from third person. It's written in a way it's very much bragging on yourself and really putting down what is relevant, what you've done in education and professional associations that you have, all of those things that you would probably feel a little timid about saying about yourself.
In person, right.
In person, right. But you put that in there in a very professional, succinct way, very clear way.
Right.
But your artist statement is more of a place where you really get to share your heart. Like you really talk about your process. You
The
talk
story
about
of your
your
work,
art,
right.
the story. And so, and it's also very good to really talk about the specifics of
Sure.
your work. Like, to list what style of work, how you use your materials. Like this one woman that I'm working with now with her artist statement, she put in there that she paints a lot with palette knives. Well, that may seem like some frivolous thing that you wouldn't mention, but in the context of your artist statement, that's important, because when people see your work, especially in an online format, they're looking at that going, how did she do that? Or is that really
Right.
texture that I'm seeing? Because they're looking at a very flat
Right.
image. And so talking about your process, talking about if there is a lot of texture, or if you're using if you're a collage artist, what type of materials you're putting into your
Right.
work, because people really want to know, how did she do that, or how did he do that,
Right.
and so you really get a place to share about that. But it's also a place where you use more emotional or sometimes spiritual language to explain like what's going on with you inside and why you do what you do, why you paint, what is your passion, what makes you tick, and why your art should make them tick.
Exactly.
And so the artist statement is a good place just to share your heart and not be feeling like you have to be a salesman.
Right.
It's just a place to really share your story. And
I know with me, on mine, I kind of talk about like, hey, I got the bug for kudzu and baskets back in college, but it's not like I was like, I got a BS ed and blah 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 blah
Right.
blah. I just kind of tell the story, and then I kind of walk people through the process that I love to harvest my own materials. That I loved. I was very strongly influenced by Appalachian basketry, but now I've kind of pay homage to that, but also build on my sculptural, interest in that sort of thing. And so I talk about how it's I honor the past, but I have an expression that's all my own. And so again, it's more story. How did you get to where you are now, as opposed to just here's where I went to college or whatever. So
yeah, and you need both. You need the very professional bio or even a resume sometimes. but then you also need that artist statement to really let people into your world.
Right.
And that can be hard for people that are shy or timid or that think of themselves as very humble. They don't want to talk about themselves. I know
I've heard about people like that.
You make a joke all the time,
That's
like,
right.
let me tell you about me.
That's
well,
right.
Again, now let me tell you about me.
That's right.
So
Enough about me. What do you think about me? That's right.
There it is. And so I imagine you didn't have a hard time writing your
I
artist statement.
I didn't. Well, we were talking about one of the things we're going to be exploring here in the next few months is the redemptive gifts and how we're each wired, and it's so important, I think, for people to realize, like, you're a mercy redemptive gift, so you feel things you're very slow moving, but once you make a decision, you're very stubborn of it. No, I wouldn't say stubborn, but once you make a decision, you're really sure about it.
Yeah.
Whereas me, I'm like, let's make a decision, and then if we need to change it, we can go on it. It's important to just go. Go. I see it. Let's go, and we'll tweak it on the way.
And I'm always saying that's not what we said we would
That's
do.
Right. But I think for artists, the same thing is true. A lot of times we approach our marketing in that way as well.
Yeah.
We can feel like, oh gosh, I'm not ready. I don't want to put it out there, or I don't know how to craft an artist statement, so I better just not do it at all until I'm ready. And we were talking on the way over here. It's kind of like you have to tell people where you are now, because you're always going to be in process. And yes, there are periods of refinement that we go through where you kind of are in a more, sacred space where you're not ready to share that as much and that sort of thing. But I think that getting people the freedom to be able to say, you know what, this is where I am now. Maybe I don't have an MFA in oil painting or sculpture, but this is who I am now, and I'm going to put it out there because God can use us wherever we are in our journey. So we'll be talking more about the artist statement and what it means to cultivate a successful creative life in just a moment here on In the Studio.
You are listening to 95.7 The Choice, where we're not afraid to play a 6-minute song.
Hello, listeners. This is Aggie, the Italian Cookie Lady, and I am proud to support 95.7 The Choice. Whether it's a wedding, anniversary, or birthday, we have the perfect dessert for you. From cookies to cannolis, cakes, pastries, the Italian Cookie Lady is here to satisfy your sweet tooth. We use only the finest ingredients and family recipes. For more information, go to ItalianCookieLady.com or call me at 828-553-5295, and remember to mangia.
Did God tell you to move to Asheville, but you don't know why? Well, maybe we can help you with that answer. We have named our church after the book of Acts in the Bible. We call it the Acts Church. We as humans have overcomplicated this life here on earth and our understanding of God and the Bible. After all, there are only two things that God has told us to do. We are to love Him and to love each other. Come as you are and meet the love of a lifetime. His name is Jesus Christ. Visit us at actschurchasheville.com.
The world loves thrift stores, and we've just opened one. Acts 2 Thrift Store, sponsored by the Acts Church, is now located at Business Park South on Sweden Creek Road. We have everything from furniture to clothes, tools to toys. We're open Wednesday through Saturday, and we welcome your donation items as well. Just follow the signs to Act 2 Thrift Store.
And we're back here today on In the Studio with Matt, Tommy, and Pattie and Hale, talking about cultivating a successful creative life. Been talking about the artist statement, which can really freak people out, but we hope we get beyond the freaky today and we get you to a place of being comfortable with that, because it really is telling your story, letting people see into the window of your world and understand what makes you tick as an artist. And one of my favorite metalsmiths, Jason Janau, who's here in the Southern Highland Craft Guild, Nashville, and he was in my marketing class the other day, and I hope you are watching this, Jason, because I'm talking about you. But I wanted to hear, one of the things I always tell people when you're developing an artist statement is go back to that first thing, that first love. It's kind of like your relationship with the Lord. It's like, what is it that brought you to that place where you knew that you needed, Jesus in your life? And the same thing I think is true of creativity, because really it is in that place of connection where all of our art, all of our creativity really originates. It's where we connect with the Lord many times. It's that aha moment. And I always like people to take people back, whether it's in a spiritual or non-spiritual type environment, to that place where where they found their first love, you know. And the other day at the thing I was doing up at the Folk Art Center, it was interesting. Everybody came in, you know, 30 artists, very businesslike, and we were all, you know, everybody's kind of a little bit heavy, I could tell. It was early in the morning. It's like many of them were probably like, I don't wake up this early, and, you know, it's going to be a business thing, so it's going to be hard for me, and just kind of a, you know, more of a serious affect. And as I started having Jason and others tell the story of how they got connected with their art, things began to change. The whole room lifted. The energy in the room changed, and I believe that, you know, for him, what was interesting, it was kind of very similar to my story. He was 16 years old, was out trout fishing with some, I believe his dad and his brothers, that sort of thing, and was walking down the river bank and began to see these rocks and began to see the sticks. And he'd already played with metal a little bit, and he was like, I wonder if I could take that and make this, and began to kind of experiment with that process. And he told the story of how that began to work, how it evolved into his work now. And I just told people, and I really believe this, if you ever lose that part of the story, if you ever lose that spark, then the whole thing is for nothing. Because then you're just going through skill, you're just you know, cranking out work that you have no connection to, and if you have no connection to it, then people are certainly not going to have a connection to it, and it can lead to this really dry place. You know, when we talk about the whole field and skilled thing, it can lead to that side where you're really talented and very skillful at what you do, but there's no life.
Right.
And so I think the artist statement, the connection with that, why it's so important, is not just for your website, although it is for your website, but it's really that connection point that you have with your work, and it's bringing others into that story, so that when you're asking people to pay a significant amount of money for work, they're not just paying for the product, but they're paying for the process. They're paying for the whole story that goes along with that. And that's the beautiful piece, I think, of what we do.
I know with the Unlocking the Heart of the Artist Experience course, we have everyone that does that course begin writing their artist statement and work on that throughout the whole course. And it's usually a very hard process for people. And I think the thing is so many people have not put into language who they are as an artist, or
as a person, right.
or even as a person, but even even what their creative process is. They've not made that connection to be able to relate to other people and articulate to other people what it is that they do and who they are. And so that's huge. I mean, you know, when you start like a little Facebook account and it's got the little About Me page, and it's like,
what do I say?
How do I, in a few words, say who I am? And it's a difficult thing. And so I understand where people are coming from when it's like, how do I say this? So one of the things that I had, this lady that came into the studio the other day, our friend, I just sat down with her, and like I said, I put on my homeschooling hat, and it was just like sitting there as teacher and saying, okay, well, let's brainstorm. You know, let's pull out let's do some circles here. Let's just go in circles and just start writing some things down. And one of the things that I suggest for people to do is to just write down 5 or 10 things that come to the top of your mind. Like, who are you? Like for me, it's when I'm talking about my art, it's playful. Goodwill. That would be my fashion statement.
That's right. Thank you. But I digress.
Sometimes, yes, let's not digress. Let me get back to the point. So it would be Appalachian. It would be love for the mountains. It would be connection to the Holy Spirit.
Right.
So you see some of the things that I'm throwing out that if you know me, you know those are things that I'm really passionate about. So what are your passions when it comes to your art, your creativity, your music? What are the things that you are most passionate about? And don't think about trying to put that into language that's going to relate to other people or that's well articulated. Just throw it down in note form. 5 or 10 things right off the top. And then what we began to do, she did that, and what we began to do then at that point is say, okay, what are the groups that we're seeing?
Right.
So she would say 2 or 3 things that kind of went together. Then another 2 or 3 things would kind of go together.
You start to see a theme through it.
So we're seeing the theme, we're seeing the outline begin to form, and so, you know, we just hit the top things. Well, one of the things she had left out, she's talking all about her, and this is much like her redemptive gift, as we were talking about. She's very soft. She's very much a processor, and so as a lot of women are too. And so maybe you can talk a little more about, like, from a man's point of view, writing an artist statement. But she had all these things about like what's working on the inside and why she does what she does from a spiritual perspective, from an emotional perspective. But she didn't actually write about her technique. And so we went back in. We developed two paragraphs
Right.
In the outline for her, and then one was about process, and one was I can't remember exactly now, but one was more specific about her process, about why she does what she does. But she hadn't written anything really about her art, and so I said, okay, now write 5 or 10 things that are very specific about your art. Like when people look at your art, what do they see? Do they see texture? Do they see intensity of color? Do they see beautiful line work? How do you do your painting? Is it, what is your process really like?
Right.
Are you airbrushing? Are you using watercolors? Those kind of questions. And so she again wrote down 5 or 10 things that were specific about her actual
Right.
work. And then out of that, we picked out highlights and began to write. And so then she had a full outline, very specific, down to bullet point,
Right.
bullet point, so that when she goes to the writing process, then she can think about, how do I want this to sound to
Right.
people? And we talked about not
Connect the narrative,
yeah,
right? Uh-huh.
not being freaky.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that artists can do, because sometimes our language is so out there.
Right.
I mean, we talk about our art in these ways that does not even sound like normal English,
Right.
to people. And so really thinking about how to relate that. Do you want it to be very poetic? Well, it can get too poetic. It can be so poetic that only you understand it,
Right.
because it's such an abstract kind of language that you're using. So you want to find the balance in your artist statement of being, yes, from the heart, especially, and I'm talking about from a woman's perspective too, from the heart, from that spiritual place, from that passionate place, but also speaking in a way that relates to the normal person that's not an artist, that may be a collector,
Right.
that may be an organization you want to work with.
Right. Give them a bridge into your work
yes.
so they can understand that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I know for me, it's, and we've talked about this before on the show, but we process life and our art so differently. I rarely go into a piece with that much intention. I really, my intent and my love for the process of my work is really connected to the materials. In fact, we were talking about that this morning, that I'm becoming a kudzu hoarder because I have stuff everywhere, but that's what I love. I love that getting the materials. It's like, when you throw a big pile of money up and just want to wallow in it. That's what I just want to get all the
Kudzu
bark and all the
money.
kudzu and all the stuff and just like, oh, I love it. I don't want to let it go.
It's like me and fibers.
It is.
Fibers.
And I love that. And so in my artist statement, I don't talk as much about the deep inner things or the process or whatever, but I really celebrate the materials, the processing of it. Every basket begins with a walk in the woods is my tagline that I developed, and that's really about my connection to the work. It's what informs my work. It's the process, like yesterday, of walking down a hill and looking up 20 minutes later going, I have no clue where I am, but I'm having a lot of fun, and it's starting to get dark, so I better find the road. That experience informs my work. And in the middle of walking through the woods yesterday, I found this laurel bush that was totally dead, not a leaf on it, in the middle of all this live rhododendron. And so I just started whacking it down. I'm like, yeah, you're going home with me, baby. And so I started taking all the branches because I use them. But I'm like, that for me is a huge connection that people love. They love to hear that story. Every time I'm doing a show or whatever, people are like, do you actually harvest this? And so I love to tell that, and that is a big connection point for me. So I think whatever the connection point is with you and your artist statement, whether it's this deep spiritual place or whether it's a lighter place, but it's a real connection with how you do it or the materials that you're using, whatever it is, it's important to give people a window into how you do what you do so that they can feel like they relate to it. And the cool thing to me is when they retell that story, because then that's how your work begins to grow. I really believe the Lord uses that as divine appointments, because I have people that'll come in the studio or see me at a show and say, oh, are you the guy that goes out and pulls the vines out of the trees? Yes, I am. My friend told me about you. And they're rehearsing that story. Yeah. And that's rarely do they say, oh, you're that basket maker. They'll start telling about what I've described as important to me because it's my story that's being communicated. Right. And so I just love that.
I think it's also important to find the balance between who you are and who you want to be. and how you want to be publicly. How you want your reputation to be, because, what's that saying, that act like the person you want to be?
Right.
Like if
Until you are.
until you are. and really that works in life. It really does. But it also works in your marketing and in your creativity. Like if you want to be more sophisticated than you actually are in your work, if you want it to come off as being, maybe high, in more dignified than it is right now, well, press into that and already begin to use that language. Use a more sophisticated language if that's the direction you see yourself going. If that's the goal that you want to set, just speaking of it in a more sophisticated or more dignified way, rather than saying, "Oh, I just get in the studio and I paint a little bit and I just have fun and it's just real childlike for me."
Right.
Rather than saying that, why not say, "The process is very much a childlike process for me, and it's a beautiful place of wonder and awe." See the difference?
Right.
And so it's really how you speak about your work that will convey that thought to other people, because they'll believe what you say.
Right.
And you've got to believe what you say, or at least have faith in what you're saying, to project an image.
Right.
And that image may not always be where you think you are, because your mind and your own timidity or even wounded places in you can block you, so that you don't see you don't see yourself the way the Lord sees you. And so that's really big, I think, is to ask the Lord how He sees you. And who you really are, and then speak up out of that place.
Because whatever you have faith for is what's going to manifest in your life, whether that's in your I'm a dad and a husband and whatever life, or my creative life. Because we've talked about this before. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So your work, whatever you have faith for, literally becomes the tangible result of whatever you believe. And so if you believe that your work is not worth a lot, that it's just a little thing that you do on the side, then guess what? It is. But if you...
And that'll come out in your marketing.
It comes out in your marketing, and the difference is about $1,000. Because when you don't treat it importantly, then other people don't as well. If you don't attribute value to it, then other people don't as well. And that's why the artist statement is so key. It's showing people, hey, I value what I do. I know that what I'm doing is important, and I want you to feel that as well as you interact with my work.
It's like if you want to be taken seriously as an artist, as a musician, as a worship leader, as anything, as a dancer, then act like it.
Yeah.
And if you really don't feel that inside, like what you always say, well, fake it until you make it.
Yeah.
And that's partly about faith.
Yeah.
It's like, well, have the faith until you really have stepped into the reality of that.
Right.
Because if you have the faith, you will.
And that's not a prideful place. It's really, for me, it's becoming really clear about who it is that God has designed you to be. And that's for a lot of people. I heard somebody the other day on the radio talking about, when you're really sure about things, it can come off as pride. But it's not pride if it comes out of that place of crying out to the Lord and saying, God, reveal to me who it is that you designed me. Once you do that, and once you're informed now about who it is that you're called to be, what it is you're called to make, to do, to create, all this sort of thing, there's a confidence and a faith, not pride. I mean, you can spot pride, smell pride a mile away. That's not what I'm talking about. There's a confidence that comes, and people want to be a part of that, and that translates for an artist in wanting to have your work in their home or in their business and paying for that. So we'll probably talk a little bit more about the artist statement here in just a minute. Then we're going to get into some technology stuff. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on In the Studio.
Asheville's Choice, 95.7.
Here's the latest news from your hometown radio station, 95.7 The Choice. We have assumed the operation of the cafe here at 81 Patton Avenue. We have a new menu, new hours, and a new name. The cafe is officially called the Asheville Radio Cafe, the only restaurant, cafe, and music venue with its own radio station. Open every day at 11 a.m., closed on Sunday. Visit us at AshevilleRadioCafe.com. That's AshevilleRadioCafe.com. If you are interested in playing here at the Asheville Radio Cafe, please contact Iron Circle Music. They are the Asheville Music Cafe's exclusive booking agency. Iron Circle Music is a local music production company handling concerts, events, fundraisers, and festivals. Iron Circle Music can be reached at ironcirclemusic@gmail.com. or call them at 828-712-5690. That's 828-712-5690.
What is the center of your universe? Has that brought you true satisfaction? The center of your universe will determine if you are truly satisfied. Jesus is the center of the universe, the source of all satisfaction. Curious? Explore Centrality, weekly opportunities at 5 p.m. at 12 South French Broad Avenue in the Cornerstone Church Sanctuary. For more info, go to www.centralitychurchasheville.org.
And you're back today here on In the Studio with Matt and Tommy and Pattie Ann Hale, having a good time talking about cultivating a successful creative life and some of the details about today about what it means to have an artist statement and what all that's about. Really, really good stuff. If you're just joining us, go back and get the video at 957thechoice.com, or you can always go to our website, which is theworshipstudio.org, and click on resources, and you can see a page there with all of the radio shows that we've done in video, so you get to see my pretty plaid shirt today. And and whatever it is that Pattie's wearing.
Vintage jewelry.
That's right. That's right. So, but we're having a good time. We want to kind of switch gears a little bit today and talk about some of the details of technology and marketing and what it means to have, you know, all of that package. I'm just finishing a book called Crafting Your Brand, which Pattie gets to help me edit and go through the process of ripping it apart, making sure that's actually really good content. But, you know, we're kind of, as we're talking about crafting that brand, we can't not talk about technology. I think, you know, maybe years ago you could have, you know, just gone and gotten an agent and gotten out there and you had the luxury of being alone in your studio and not having to talk to anybody. But that's just not the case nowadays.
Does anybody do that anymore?
Well,
do you know of any?
I know
that are
of
really
tons
using
of artists that are probably older than we are, but who still have that mentality of, I don't want to get interrupted. I do what I do. I sell wholesale. You know, don't interrupt my studio time. And they're suffering right now. They're confused about, you know, why do I have to open up my process? Why do I have to get, we talk about with social media a lot of times about just living life with people through technology. That is so foreign to so many people. And I was, in the thing I was teaching the other day, talking about social media, you know, people are like, how do you have time to do social media? And I'm like, I don't even think about it like that. Like, I'm driving the car, and when I'm at the stoplight, I'll take a picture of something that I like and post it. Or I'll, you know, as I'm working on a piece, I'll snap a picture of it and put up, you know, hey, what do you think about this? Or here's a new piece I'm working on. It's just part of the process. And I think for you to make the turn, younger people than us, under 40, probably were like, oh, duh, this is no big deal. The over 40s and the people that are in our age group of, you know, that very young, 35 to 45, very young range, there may be some, you know, hopefully some tips today we can give you, but it's got to be a part of your lifestyle. It can't just be something that, okay, I got to stop what I'm doing and go be social media. Go do social media.
Then it becomes contrived, and nobody's going to track with you anyway.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Yeah, like the other day we went to, my friend Gabby and I went to the metal yard, and I came back, and this stuff was so filthy. Every time I touched it, my hands are covered in oil and grease and dirt and rust, and so I still got somebody on Facebook. We, you know, put out a picture and a little status that we were at the metal yard, and everybody was excited. And so someone had said, "Please post pictures of your finds."
Right.
So I was like, "Okay, I have to," because you know, I live life with these people, and it's like, I want to show them what I got. This is just amazing. So I'm pulling all this stuff out to take pictures of it. And my phone, my white OtterBox was covered in rust and grease. And I'm like, I do a lot to let people live with me this way, but it's so fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's part of it too. It's like, I enjoy it as much as other people are enjoying it. And it's like, I want to share, because I love hearing the feedback, and it's like you get this broad picture of living life with a lot of people. It's like a party every day.
Right,
so,
right. Well, I think for
fun.
artists that are not involved in that, you can, you can sit on the sidelines and wonder, why is nobody responding to my work? Why is nobody interested in what I'm doing? And in everything that's going on today, and this does go into back to the artist statement, because it's about telling the story of your life. It's not just 3 paragraphs on your website,
Right.
but it's the way that you live. It's the way that you interact.
Yeah, and it's not just post your latest painting and say, this is my process and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's like, no, they want to see the metal before it turns into a doll.
Right,
They want
right.
to see the tree that's being stripped, the bark's being stripped
Right.
off before it turns into a bark basket.
Sure.
They want to see you in your element, and it really is like they get to live life with you, and you get to live life with other people
Right.
and what they're going through, their
Right.
process, and so it's
Well, and
just,
that's why I think the River Arts
it's
District,
real.
where we are, is so popular nowadays, because people love to come. There's a couple came in this morning, came from Kentucky. They had gone to Savannah for the weekend, and turns out it was St. Patrick's Day. They're like, oh my gosh, why do we do this? Left early and came to Asheville, and they're like, I wish that we had come here 3 days ago, because we just loved this opportunity to come into the studio and see what you're doing and that sort of thing. So, well, as we're talking about what is the kind of, I always talk about pillars and signposts. That's kind of some of the verbiage that I use. But as I think about, your marketing and your brand, if you're kind of thinking of the Parthenon, that has all those pillars, I like to think of these 5 things as sort of pillars that everybody should have, no matter who you are. You've got to be focused in these areas when it comes to your technology. The first one is you got to have a website. I mean, if you don't have a website, what are you doing? Get off your bahunkus, and that's a Scottish word, I think.
Bahunkus.
I think, wasn't that bahookie?
Bahookie.
Bahookie.
Get off your bahookie.
That's right. That's
Get off your bahookie.
That's your wee little bahookie. But get off of it and get a website. That's so easy. I'm just going to hit these real quick, then we'll come back and talk about website. The second thing is, when you're putting stuff out there, make sure it's quality. Don't put a bunch of junk out there that nobody's interested in. If you're not interested in it, I'm not interested in it. Okay? So make sure
From the
that
mountains, that's called shooting yourself in the foot.
Exactly. Don't do that. Put quality content out there. So, the third one is search engine optimization, which can be very confusing for people. The fourth one is what I call link popularity, which is something that is very, very easy to do based in friendship, but a lot of people don't get it. And then the last thing, fifth thing, is social media. You got to have those 5 things going for you. Otherwise, you're going to be in a real state of confusion. And the other thing I like is this. I've talked about in marketing for a lot of years about having that Parthenon type mentality, that if you have this silver bullet mentality where you're trying to do one thing, like, all right, all I'm going to do is Facebook, or all I'm going to do is a website, or all I'm going to do is a postcard, then when that doesn't work, you've shot yourself in the foot. You have nothing else to rely on. Whereas if you have multiple things going on, your website, social media, links, printed stuff, shows that you're doing, wholesale, gallery work, church work, all these sort of things that are going on out there to help you market, then when one of those is not producing, it's not going to kill you,
Right.
because you've got multiple things going on. So let's talk about website real quick, because I want to try to hit all 5 of these if we can in the show today. When we talk about a website, a lot of people get freaked out about that. I don't know how to do HTML or PHP or blah, 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 blah. But it is so easy nowadays through technology like WordPress to have a website. I mean, you've helped people with that a lot. I used to own an ad agency. I did that for a living. But I think we both love WordPress. Also, what's the other one? Weebly.
Weebly
It's out there.
and,
Wix.
Wix is a really cool one. Wix.com.
Wix.
Yeah, Wix. And it's a really cool one that has a lot of, for artists, it's really cool because there's a lot of imagery in there that's neat, a lot of templates that you can use, and you don't have to figure out the technical side of how to use HTML and that kind of thing. But it's very visual. And so if you're a visual artist, you'll like that one.
Great for a portfolio
It's not
site,
real.
that sort of thing.
Most of their templates, though, are not real clean cut. That's what I love about WordPress. And I switched mine I was actually with 1-in-1, which is a great internet provider, but it didn't have a lot of templates. But I switched to WordPress because I wanted that very clean, crisp look. Like the fonts that are used in WordPress, the way things are structured, the layout, it's all very clean. And it's also a real clean process as far as like how to technically make things work. It's just very linear.
Yes, what
it
you
makes
call
a lot of sense.
A WYSIWYG system, which is an acronym we use in the web world for what you see is what you get.
Right.
And it's so it means that when you move the picture over here, when you look at the website, it's going to be over there. When you put the text here, it's going to be there. And I love those. They're called content management systems because if you can basically use Word, Microsoft Word, or Publisher or something very, customer friendly and very user friendly like that, then you can update your own website. You can add pages, add pictures, do all the things that you need to do just by logging into the back end of a website. So,
Right.
So if you don't have a website, go to WordPress.com, get a free template, download something,
And start playing with it.
and start
It's
playing
just-
with it. Yeah, you don't have to make it live or whatever. Tell anybody that you're doing it. There's a ton of people out there that do this, but if you need help from a graphic designer or whatever, but definitely have a website. And the second thing is, I would say, don't let it suck because
So true.
it's quality content.
Get several opinions from people that you trust that'll give you some real feedback.
Yes.
And make sure your website's doing what you want it to do, especially that home page. Make sure, like my home page, when you go there, what's there is I want you to connect with me on Facebook. I want you to connect with me on Twitter. I want you to get on my email list. I want you to perhaps invite me to speak at your event, and I want to show you all my new work. And so that's all on my front page. When people go there, they're seeing all of that immediately. And then
those
they
are
can go
called
to
call
different
to
places.
actions in a very broad sense. It's like when somebody comes to your website, what do you want me to do? Lead me. Show me what you want me to do.
Yeah.
Either, like you said, purchase or schedule or whatever it is. So that goes into quality content, which is number 2, because if you have stuff on there that's old, outdated, your work from 5 years ago, you've not updated it for 3 months, your calendar from last year's on there, then what does that say? It goes back to the whole thing about letting people into your world. It says that I'm not serious about my artwork. I'm not serious about this, and so you shouldn't be serious either.
Right.
And so
You've got about 15 or 20 seconds to make people realize.
Seconds. Did you hear that? Seconds.
15 or 20 seconds to realize that they want to even look at your stuff. And so that page that they're landing on needs to be so dynamic.
Right.
And so, it needs to be a hook. And so you really need to think about that a lot.
So when we're talking about content, just briefly, what are some of the things that we talked a little bit about it in social media, but the same is true with your website. If you have a blog format, updating, what's the newest piece that you're working on, or a trip that you did to the metal yard, or whatever it is, just some fun things to keep the conversation going that are quality that people are interested in. The interesting thing too, if you go to Google and you Google Google Analytics, that's a free tool that's out there. You can actually install that on the back end of your website. WordPress has a widget for that. And you can begin to tell what pages people are going to, how long they're staying, what keywords they're using to find you, all that sort of thing. But it begins to inform you about what people are interested in on your website. Like for me, I know that people come to my website homepage first. The second thing they go to is my gallery, so they want to see the pictures. The third thing they go to is my about page, which kind of tells you about who I am as an artist, my artist statement. And the fourth thing they do is go to my basket weaving classes page. So I know what people are doing, so I can tailor more information to that. So just not just having quality content, but being able to leverage that content on your website to make more informed decisions is really, really huge. So we got 3 more of these to go through. We're going to try to hit them when we get back. So don't go anywhere. We're getting into the good stuff here on In the Studio.
Music you won't hear anywhere else, not even on Spotify. 95.7, The Choice.
Are you ready for the ride of your life? Then fasten your seatbelt. We're heading down the highway for a wide open, full throttle encounter with God. You heard it right. That is the great adventure. It's a journey into the heart of God. Nothing, absolutely nothing, not landing an F-16 on an aircraft carrier, not shooting Class 5 rapids in a rubber raft, not bungee jumping from a bridge. Nothing is like exploring a limitless God. Developing an intimate connection with Him that transforms your life now and for eternity. Our roadmap for this trip is the Bible. Our Bible teacher, Dennis Thurman, directs us on the ride of our life.
Catch it here on WGNW 95.7 at 11 on Sunday mornings. See you then for the great adventure.
Where do you turn for Christian concerts and events? Where can you get news from a Christian perspective and encouraging articles written by and about the local Christian community? Turn to the Journey Christian newspaper. Available in print and online. Visit www.journeychristiannews.com or call 828-676-6535. The Journey Christian newspaper. Encouraging Christians on their walk with Christ.
Did you know that essential oils were used in biblical times to protect God's people from pestilence? Frankincense, as an example, was said to be good for everything, from gout to a broken head. In other words, good from head to toe. 95.7 The Choice would like to thank Jackie McLaughlin for her generous support. For more information about essential oils, visit oil-essentials.com or call Jackie at 828-452-2958. That's 828-452-2958.
And we're back here on In the Studio with Matt Tommy and Pattie Ann Hale, talking about the good stuff of a website and quality content and some of the 5 pillars that it takes to really have a great marketing technology platform, which is kind of what we've been talking about. And as we just kind of finish up that whole quality content, we were talking about things like, making sure you do have an editor that looks through, your website to make sure you spell things correctly, that you're accurately portraying yourself. Also, that your photography is good. I mean, oh my gosh, please don't put just a little snapshot photography on your website and be taken seriously. It behooves you to either get a great camera or work with somebody that is a photographer to take your images. And that's not just for 3D artists. I mean, wouldn't you say for 2D as well? It's so important.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so important, especially for 2D, because you want to make sure that your color's right and that it's really what you see is what you get.
Yeah,
so
it's representing you well.
Yeah, and so it's very important to have really nice photography, and that it's easy to get through on your website. I think that's quality too. Like, it's easy to look at your photos. Like on my website, one of the features I love with WordPress is that you can set up your gallery. So I have different series of my work, different galleries within my website, and when you go to that gallery, a slideshow starts automatically. That's pretty large, and you can see the pictures really nice. But then you can also see like a grid of those paintings, and you can click on each one, and they'll come up very large, and you can even scan around and see the details of it, see the texture. So features like that are really nice to work with, and really just playing around with WordPress, you'll be surprised how much you can learn, and really look at the widgets too, because that gives you a lot of quality.
And a widget is basically a piece of software or functionality that plugs in. They call them plugins or widgets, and they go into the website to give you enhanced technology, enhanced software ability to do different things that you might want to do. So,
which is how you link your Facebook or your Twitter and those kind of things, and sometimes set up how you set up a slideshow of your work.
So we talked a little bit in quality content about the whole idea of blogging, but I know you just wanted to briefly hit that real quick about what does it mean to have a blog, and it's such an easy way now to be able to post quality content on a regular basis.
Well, that pushes us in a little bit to the social media, and then I guess we can come back to link popularity and search engine optimization. But, a lot of people are like, why would I blog when my Facebook is, where I put all my information? Well, I think it's important to have both. Your blog, you can share so much more in your blog, and you can share it in more of a complete story. With Facebook, nobody's going to sit there and read, 5 paragraphs of your story with pictures in it.
But there's snippets, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You're just giving them a little snap of your life, a little glimpse of your life on Facebook, and that can be enough, especially if you post as much as I do.
It's enough, Pattie. It's enough.
But at times there's things that you may want to write, and if you're not a writer, don't let that hold you back, because you totally can just do pictures and write just short little comments. But having a blog is really important, and linking that to your website is really important. So I think there's a balance.
Or having a website that is a blog.
Yes,
I mean,
you can even do that.
yeah.
Yes, and blogs even. A lot of people have blogs now. Sometimes we think of a blog as more of a place where you write, post pictures. Your website is where you have pages, but a lot of blogs now
Have both.
actually have several pages, and so
Right.
it's more like a website, but it still feels like a blog when you're on there.
Right.
So it's a place to go and read and find out, more about this artist, or find out about the process, or just read for enjoyment.
Yeah.
Blogs are great too, because when you post, say you post a couple times a week to your blog, well, if people are on your email list or they're following your blog, which often is not built into a website, it can be, but it's more typical to see the following on a blog.
Right.
And so they'll get an email, or they may even have, like on their Google Reader, they may have your blog connected to that. So every time you post, they're getting a notification, and they're going to read your stuff. It's like reading the newspaper for them.
It's just like a podcast.
Yeah.
You get a notification for an audio file coming.
Exactly.
Blogs do the same thing.
Yeah. So when you're really, and a lot of times people are not on Facebook. I mean, there's still a lot of
What?
people that are not.
Not on Facebook.
Believe it or not. They're not doing Facebook.
Right.
And so they're still doing email. And they'll get an email notification to read your blog. And so that's another way, another avenue to share with people, and to hit a whole different group of people.
That's right.
So,
Well, let's talk about real quick search engine optimization and then link popularity. Both of those things are. It's kind of like the money part of your website, because it's like, just because you have a website doesn't mean anybody's coming to it.
right.
And so that's the thing that I have people all the time say, why do I need to invest in a website? Nobody ever comes to it. I never sell anything from it. I'm like, well, exactly. That's why you need to invest, because you're missing this huge, opportunity. I got an email the other day from some folks at Appalachian State University who are in a class. You met them the other day. They're doing a documentary on kudzu. And what did they do? They Googled kudzu uses, all this kind of stuff. And who came up? Me. And they came down and did this whole 4-hour thing with me, interviewing me on video, taking them out to the kudzu patch. I'm now going to be in a documentary video about my material. Well, I love that, but that isn't just because I'm lucky or, whatever. It's because I optimize my website. And we'll probably need to do a whole show on that, about what it means to optimize your website. It'll be in my new book as well. I'll give a lot of details, but, tagging things correctly, having the page title. I'll tell you what to do. Go to Google and put in Google Keyword Tool. When you do that, it's going to bring up this free tool that you can actually put in keywords and phrases, and it'll tell you exactly what people are looking for when they're typing it in Google. Then you can take those words and incorporate that into your Facebook, your website, your page title, your tags, page description, all that kind of stuff that you're doing to optimize your website. It's a huge thing that very few people use, and it's like Google giving you the answers to the test. It's like, here's what we're looking for.
We love Google.
I know. Here's what we're looking for. Now put this in your website, so you'll be more likely to be found. And then the last thing that I just love to people love to help you succeed. And one of the things that I do on my website that's very
Can you say that again?
People love to help you succeed. And that's really important, because most of the time you have this idea that, I'm just all by myself. No, you're not. If you're my friend, if you're Pattie's friend, if you have friends that are, we love you. We love your art. We want to help. We want to tell other people about your art. And likewise, we see that reciprocity, I think, a lot in the arts community. And so I started a little thing on my website it's just called Artists That I Know. And what I do is, if you'll send me an email as one of my friends and say, hey, I'd like to be included in that, what I'll do is I'll put your name and I'll put your website link on my website. And then you'll do the same for me. Well, what that does is it causes this reciprocal link. And when Google is looking out there, and there's, for me as a fine craft artist, if they're looking at all the body of fine craft artists that are out there, specifically basketry, specifically, the Southern Highland Craft Guild, John C. Campbell Folk School, all the things that I'm involved in. When they see my website on those websites, and they see my website linking back to those websites, there's a connection that's made there. And what that does is it raises your value to Google. So, and that's called PageRank. So when you go to Google something, the things that come to the top are not just by luck. They're done by this algorithm that says, hey, this guy is on a whole lot of pages out there on the internet that have to do with this subject matter. He must know what he's talking about. We're going to push him to the top. So it literally can be as easy as, the professional organizations that you're in, the friends that you have that are artists out there, community opportunities, your blog, all these things that link back and forth to your website create this web that's out there that Google looks at and puts a lot of value in. And so it's just it's as easy as asking your friends, hey, you want to put a link on my website? I'll put one on yours, and just begin to build that web. And oh my gosh, it's a huge tool that people don't do.
Yeah.
So I love it. Well, hey, I cannot believe it, but we're like,
That's another thing about
to
blogs.
the end almost.
about blogs as well. On my blog, I have several people that I also follow their blogs.
Yes.
And I make a link. There's a widget for that of how you can put that into your sidebar. So people are finding my blog through those people's sites and also finding the sites that I love.
Yeah.
And I want the people that are connected with me to also read their stuff. That's all on my blog. And within different blog formats, whether it's Blogit or blogger.com or even WordPress has blogs as well, there's circles and there's structures within their sites of how they connect people.
Yeah.
And so it's a good way to, the blog itself is a good way also to build a network of connection and really putting out information from other people and getting your information into other circles.
Well, here's your homework. If you're listening to us, which I know you are because we get a ton of people watching this, go on our Facebook page under when Pattie posts this and tell us some of the things that you'd like to know about, more specifically about technology, because there are tons of things that we could talk about like this, and I'd love to do that. Talk about because we want to take it out, just like everything that we talk about here. We want to take it out of the ether and bring it into the real, bring it into the reality, so you can really know how to cultivate this successful creative life that you've always wanted to have and really live in all the fullness that God's got for you. And part of that's having a website. So
Exactly.
well, hey, from both of us to you, we love you very much. Thanks a lot for listening and watching today, wherever you are. Go to our website, download it if you've not seen the whole thing. But catch us next week here on 95.7 The Choice for In the Studio. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.